Welcome to the Sweaty Pillow. I'm already grinning from ear to ear because I've been giggling already with today's guest, Dr. Ellen Albertson, a psychologist, registered dietitian, national board certified health and wellness coach, most importantly known as the Midlife Whisperer, author of bestselling book Rock Your Midlife: 7 Steps to Transform Yourself, Make Your Next Chapter Your Best Chapter. Focuses on developing healthier relationships with food, managing stress, and the host of the podcast Love Your Way to Success. I mean, there is so much here. We could have a series of 22 podcasts because your work, your wisdom, your kind of formula for success resonates with me as a menopausal woman and a zillion other women. So welcome, Dr. Ellen. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Laura. It's so good to be here. I can't wait to get into this. And thank you for having this podcast, because when I was going through menopause, we were talking about it. I think it was a combination
Yes.
of so much has happened in the last 5 years. I mean, that was only, like 5 years ago, but so much more information is out there. Women are talking about it. There's so much happening on social media with, programs like yours. And it's just so great that we are like putting it right out there of what is going on. So no woman needs to feel that she's going crazy or she's alone.
Love that. Love that. I wanted to kick off because there's so many topics we want to get into. I want to kick off to what the hell happens to our brain during menopause? Like there's these physical things that women perseverate over. Like I've gained 10 pounds. Okay, yeah, it's bad. I hate it, but I feel like I'm going crazy. I can't remember anything. I want to kill everyone in my car on the way to work. What is going on upstairs?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. It's a combination of hormonal changes. Cognitive function is changing. Mood and emotional regulation is changing. You got those sleep disturbances going on, which is going to affect how you feel. There's neurotransmitter function is also getting shifted. We know about those hot flashes, but that's also affecting things like serotonin and mood, dopamine and motivation. Our stress response is also changing. So basically, all of our brain is really changing. That's kind of the bad news. Is a lot of women tell me, people I work with, I just don't feel like myself. And it's really
Mhm.
true, because if we think about the main thing that's triggering all of the changes during the menopausal transition is the change in estrogen. And estrogen has what's called a neuroprotective effect, which means it influences neurotransmitters like serotonin, which is the thing that makes you feel kind of calm, dopamine, which is the chemical of reward, and norepinephrine. So all of this is crucial for mood regulation. So when the estrogen can go up and down, and also progesterone tends to chill you out and help with sleep. So there's all of this imbalance of hormones, and that's really impacting your brain and can make you feel pretty crappy. And then you add on top of that you've got the sleep disturbances, and the sleep is so important for your mood, how you feel. Super important to note that women at midlife have the highest rate of depression for any group for our age and our gender. And, so often we go into the doctor and they hand us an antidepressant. And,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
feel like we need to educate ourselves and say, well, if hormones are the cause of this, why don't we take a look and see if we can regulate and get to a better place with our hormones, and see if the mood changes. Certainly antidepressants can help, therapy can help. And I think with all of this irritability, we were talking a little bit, offline about it. You just feel like you want to strangle everybody. You spend this part of your life like taking care of everybody, right? Your spouse, your
Yeah.
kids, your parents, your coworkers, being a people pleaser. And then all of a sudden, you become like Dragon Lady, right? It's like, I think it's like not just caterpillar to butterfly. It's like caterpillar and then Dragon Lady. We're just super irritable. We are itchy. The list of things that complaints and side effects of the menopausal transition are super, super huge and long, and we just don't feel great. And so that's, affecting our mood. I mean, everything's interrelated. All of the hormonal systems are interrelated. Our brain is being impacted. But the good news is, ladies, get selfish. This is where like no becomes your yes, where you start to say, you know what? I need to take that nap.
Yeah.
I need to say, I can't take on this extra project. I need to tell my partner, you know what, you got to pick up the kids today. I need to take things off my plate. I need to say, you know what? I need to take that Sunday off and do nothing, giving ourselves permission to slow it down, to give ourselves what we need, to get radical in terms of the self-care and the self-compassion piece, because our brains really are changing from pleasing everyone else. The female brain is all about this sort of connection and pleasing. And when that estrogen goes down, so much of it becomes about like, yeah, I'm going to be a little selfish. I'm going to kill somebody.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. And it's just really resonating with me now. And I'm probably owe some apologies even as from this morning on how I reacted. But um, there is certainly an aspect to no is a complete sentence, but that's we're not trained for that, right? So it doesn't come natural. So there's that aspect, but you give me hope when I ordered your book this morning that when I was looking through, the overview, we can retrain our brains. We
We can.
can so tell us about like how does that work? What can we do?
Well, there is something called neuroplasticity. So researchers used to think that by the time you reached 18, that your brain was done developing. It didn't change. And now we know that our brain continues to evolve and grow throughout our lives. So we have like neural pathways. It's kind of, if you think about, maybe you're too young to remember records, right? With the little grooves in them,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can switch the grooves. And the way that we do this is we start to change our mindset. So when you work on your mind, when you question your thoughts, when you question someone says to you, can you do this thing? And instead of going automatically, yes, sure, I want you to like me, I'm a people pleaser, you pause and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, let me think about that. Or you start to have this thought in your mind, like, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And you stop and you're thinking, like, is that really true? Let me take a look at my strengths. Let me look at who I am. You start to question those limiting beliefs. We don't believe your thoughts. I like to say that I think it's the mind is a great servant but a terrible master. I think it's Robin Sharma said that, but it's
Oh,
really
that's
true
so
that
good.
we need to stop believing everything that our minds tell us and
Yeah.
question those thoughts. And that's really where things like mindfulness and meditation come in, and slowing down and deciding, like, who do I really want to be? I think menopause is this beautiful opportunity to decide, what do I want the next chapter of my life to look like? And the reason that we're paying so
Mm-hmm.
much attention to menopause is twofold. One, women, especially Gen X, are like standing up and saying, no, I feel this way. I need help. I deserve help. Let's talk about this. And also, we're living longer. Until
Mm-hmm.
recently, most women, died in their mid 50s. And now we're living to, I mean, my mom, God bless her, is 92. We're talking about an extra 3 decades after the menopausal transition.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really looking at, like, okay, so I'm going through this change, this caterpillar to butterfly, or maybe it's dragonfly. And how do I want my life to look? And that brain change is a piece of that, where we start to say, and this is like a lot of my work with women, is, what do I want my life to look like? It's been so much about pleasing others and following these societal norms, which are all there to put
Mm-hmm.
us in place. Like, if I hear one more comment about like anti-aging and age gracefully, I'm gonna scream. Like, I don't want to age gracefully. I want to age like fiercely and audaciously
Oh.
and empowered. Right? Like, this whole idea that we're supposed to be, sweet little old ladies on rocking chairs. I mean, no way. I'm going to be like roller skating at 80.
Nice, nice. Pickleball. Um,
Absolutely.
so there's a pattern in some of my girlfriends that I'm seeing because when we sit around with wine and talk about our symptoms and creating this new life that we want for ourselves, there's a pattern that I'm seeing where a lot of moms and wives who didn't choose to be in the workforce and stayed home and raised their families and did everything for everyone and were these superheroes and put everyone first. Now their kids are out of the house, they're done university, they're getting jobs, and they're really struggling with everything menopause plus their identity. Because my identity was, oh, my daughter just got into this Div 1 school, and it's all wrapped up in what I did to do this for my children and my family. So, what role does the identity and how we have valued ourselves as women and mothers and wives, how does that impact your mental health?
Yeah, that's really huge. And I think that it's very, very common. I just, my son just graduated from college. So I'm like, it's done, right? So much of our identity
Peace.
is wrapped up. And so I know like when my mom, when my oldest sibling left, my mom would just like cry and listen to his records. But for us, there's that mourning piece, but then
Hmm.
there's also this piece of opportunity again, this idea of, okay, so what am I passionate about? Getting selfish and just saying, oh my gosh, I've lost that piece of my identity, but I've gained this new freedom and this new search for joy. The
Hmm.
Japanese have a word called ikigai, which means like what's really my purpose? What am I here to do? How am I here to serve? What lights me up? So I think in terms of, our mental health, when we look at, okay, what is my genius and what am I amazing at? Maybe it's just making the best chocolate chip cookies in the world. Maybe it's really compassionate listening. Like you really like maybe helping kids and mentoring or helping, older adults, whatever that thing is. You have a gift, you have a genius. And I think that's where we can really elevate our mental health, when we discover what lights us up, what brings us joy.
Mm.
And we do that thing and thinking about how can I be of service, but also a little bit of mourning, because it's true. Like our
Yeah.
identities are shifting. And, but I have to say now that, my kids are 23 and almost 27, I have such a great relationship with them. And it took some work. Got divorced and I left, and it took some work to get that relationship to a beautiful place, but your kids still need you. And
Yeah,
you
that's
kind of
true.
need your kids too. So it's like that there is that sort of invisible umbilical cord. Like my son, we've been texting about chicken soup, because he remembers it when he was a kid. I would always make him this Chinese healing chicken soup, and he's like, "Mom, can I have the recipe?" And I was like, "How did you make it? And how was it?" And it's like they still want you, they still love you, they still need you. And then there's this whole other opportunity I see with women, is these things called grandkids. And
Mm.
it's I think that we just need to change, our attitude about it, and look at all the opportunities for growth and development and love and connection, and and mourn that those times are over, and really create this beautiful present reality, and think about what we want in our future.
That's really well said. Something I've picked up on twice now, that our generation, yours and mine, grew up thinking that selfish is a bad word. Can't be selfish at school in the sandbox. You can't be selfish. That is like not a good trait. But now this is an opportunity in this chapter of our lives to turn that on its head. What is wrong with being selfish at this stage?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. And in fact, when you are selfish, maybe we need a different word,
Yeah.
talking about practicing radical self-care, you have so much more energy for everyone and everything else in your life. When you're exhausted, when you are burning the candle at both ends, you're not any use to anyone, including yourself. So
Hmm.
especially when we're going through menopause, when our body is definitely going through this major transitional stress. It's like adolescence and kind of in reverse, right? Where we're going through these hormonal changes. Our bodies start to speak to us, particularly if we have not been practicing self-care, if we haven't taken, those steps. And so I think we need to, let that go. And also just think about, like, with men, right? Like, would they say that to a boy in the sandbox? Like, you'd say like share
No.
your shovel, but like we don't hear that
Yeah.
storyline with men. And so I think we need to frame it as, radical self-care, and there's nothing
Hmm.
wrong. And I see this a lot with my clients. We'll have this conversation and they'll start to think about taking that class or getting that massage, or, saying to their husbands, I need a day off, or I want to actually go on a retreat for a couple of days. And they start to feel incredibly guilty,
Yeah.
and they stop. And what I
Hmm.
say to them is, okay, let's take a look at guilt. Guilt is a productive emotion if you are doing something, if your behavior is harmful. So, like, if you yell at your kids, you feel guilty, you change your behavior.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
when you're not doing anything wrong, like going to that jazzercise class, is a good thing. Going out and
Yeah.
having dinner with your girlfriends is a healthy, good thing for your self-care, but you feel selfish. It's like, let's look at that, because you're not doing anything wrong. You're taking care of yourself, and that gives you more energy for everyone and everything else. And if you talk to your loved ones, most when I have, my clients, and I have them like, go talk to your kids and your spouse, they're like, yeah, mom, go do that thing. spouses are usually like, if your spouse is not supportive of you doing the self-care, then it's, questionable of like, do you need to shift that relationship and look at that as well?
That just made me think about our conversation around our own identity. If we're not needed in the same way. So some of it's on us. It's like, well, I can't possibly do this because so and so needs me. They actually don't. So it's our own limiting beliefs on what someone needs. By the way, what do I need? I need to go to yoga right now so I can minimize my road rage in the morning, the next morning on my way to work. It's really, really important. I want to talk about something that has come up through the course of our business serving menopausal women since 2013. So we got into supporting menopausal women, and it was way before it was cool. It was way before there was a lot of people talking about it. And there was an element of shame. And what I mean by that is advertisers, the old world of influencers, investors, they didn't want us talking about that as our value proposition, that we wake up every day in service of menopausal women, because that is a bad word. No one wants to attach their brand to the word menopause because there's this shame aspect. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, shame is such a hard emotion. To start off, just defining it is this sense that you're bad.
Yeah.
And like, it's a normal, natural thing. Like, women, people with uteruses, the majority of us are going through menopause. And I think it's this starts very early. This idea that women's bodies are shameful. I mean, it's almost like, Adam and Eve, right? Like, she had the apple and she was naked and ashamed, right? They did something
Hmm.
wrong because they wanted wisdom and they wanted to like feed themselves. But we have such shame around our bodies in general, menstruation and menopause and, even like childbirth. Things are supposed to be very sterile. And we don't want to like look at these things. And I think, it's so important to get rid of that shame because
Hmm.
it's just a normal, natural part of the female life cycle. And I just think it's interesting that marketers, have looked at menopause, that they don't even want to talk about it or attach their brand to it. I mean, I think that's starting to change. It's the same thing as all of this anti-aging, stay youthful rhetoric. Like, what the F is wrong with getting older? And we talked, off the air that, I just had a cancer diagnosis. I am really happy about aging. It
Yeah.
certainly beats the alternative. So there's all
Hmm.
of those, so the shame around these normal, natural transitions, everything from, for women, everything from, menstruation, menopause, aging, all of these things, which are natural and normal. And I think that the shame is marketers want us to feel bad about our bodies and ourselves, because if we loved ourselves, we wouldn't buy all of these BS solutions that promise us, if you take this thing or use this cream, you'll be happy. But
Hmm.
happiness is an inside out job. And I think certainly like the products that you offer that are giving women comfort are super important, to look for those things that are truly going to support you through this menopausal transition, but to look at what is truly going to make me happy, not, some like, if I look like, I'm always amazed. I see women who they just want to look like their 26-year-old selves. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I've never felt better about my body and myself at 61. I rock a bikini. And then you get those people too who are like, you shouldn't be wearing a two-piece at your age. Like, you're an old woman. Like, God forbid you should rock a bikini, in your 60s. But a lot of us are just standing up and saying, I get to do what I want to do and feel the way that I want to feel. And I'm not going to, we're breaking these societal norms and creating new ways of being. And I think this whole menopause transition is a lot of women becoming empowered and saying, this is really happening to me, and I deserve support, whether that's in the boardroom or the bedroom.
So you've said this is one of my big takeaways from what you're saying, and part of your message is make yourself happy. It is our responsibility, and it's only ours to make ourselves happy. We can't rely on, other people, products, people, experiences, arguably maybe, but if not now, when? What are we waiting for?
Right.
Like, this is it. As our conversations evolving from guilt, shame, midlife rage, it's a perfect segue into let's talk about midlife and sex.
Okay.
Because let's get into it because we're not feeling the best. We're tired. We're more tired. How do we resurrect all that fun and sexiness at this age and stage?
Yeah, so I think that starts with the self-care, and I have to say too, we haven't talked about self-compassion yet, but that was a
Mm,
huge game changer for me. Learning it, my research showed that self-compassion reduces body shame, body dissatisfaction, self-worth based on appearance, and improves body appreciation. So it starts with loving our bodies, giving ourselves permission to enjoy pleasure, and and asking that question, what feels good for me? And then also getting that support. So yeah, take a nap. Like I am such a big fan of, taking a nap. I'm also a huge fan of lubricants. Estradiol is fantastic. So if you are dry down there, that is a huge side
mm-hmm,
effect of the menopausal transition for women going through menopause and, and postmenopausal as well. I use estradiol, it's
mm-hmm.
just something that you use topically. You insert it in your vagina. We can say that word too, right?
Love
Um,
it. Yeah, it's
and
my favorite word.
it changes the texture, and it's
Mm,
like you get,
okay.
you it so it doesn't hurt. So that's the thing,
Mm,
to really feel empowered of discovering what makes me feel good, communicating with your partner, being patient. And it's also okay if you want to take a break. I mean, I was sharing my story of I got divorced about 6 years ago, and really amplified the self-love and really
mm,
attracted an amazing partner in my life. But when we met, he had benign prostate hyperplasia, which meant that he wasn't able to maintain an erection. And I was
mm,
okay with that. I was like, I've had great sex earlier in my life. It's all right. I was like, okay with taking that off the table, because the relationship and the friendship and the connection and the adoration was so deep.
mm-hmm,
Long story should fast forward, about a year and a half into our relationship, he got he got a procedure that helped him. I did some healing, got the estradiol. We started working on things, and now we're rocking and rolling. It's really fun. It's just fun. And for either of us, there's great communication. So I think the communication is key. The fatigue is key. So, if your partner is like, hey, honey, I want some, we'll say, hey, honey, well, then why don't you watch the kids this afternoon or take them to soccer or whatever, so I can do that yoga class, take that,
mm-hmm,
do that nap, do that self-care. So it's a great opportunity to ask for what you need, to communicate, and to really feel empowered that, that I get to determine what does pleasure look like for me. And there's so much more to the intimacy than just that sexual act. What does
mm-hmm.
intimacy mean and look like for you? But it's a beautiful time to reinvent your relationship. And I think, the majority of women that I work with who are in long-term relationships, it's hard. There's a grown
Yeah.
apartness, it's sort of like you meet over where the kids are. And
Mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm.
if that relationship has legs and you want it to work, then you also need to take the time and prioritize it, and prioritize yourself, and discuss what that looks like, or, get some counseling if it's not working, whether that is, seeing a sexual educator, or, getting some couples counseling, because if you're not, rocking in terms of your day-to-day life, you're not going to be rocking in the bedroom as well. So you need to, it's a holistic approach to your sexual relationship and your sexual health.
It is truly the most important investment we can make. And I appreciate that you say it's a holistic approach. It's not one thing. It's not, and I've talked about this a lot with some of the thought leaders. Getting just an estrogen cream or whatever isn't the only thing that you should be doing. It is diet, fitness, but internally and mentally and emotionally, there's this self-care, self-compassion investment in ourselves from the inside out that I think gets overlooked in the conversation of menopause support.
Yeah, I think that especially that self-compassion piece. So
Hmm.
self-compassion is essentially treating yourself the way you would a good friend. And
Mm,
so when I start working with women, and when I'm doing lectures around self-compassion talks, I ask the women, you can ask yourself this question right now. Imagine that you have a good friend and she has gone through some difficulty. Maybe she's feeling some shame, some embarrassment. She's missed the mark in terms of something she wanted. She's failed. She's feeling inadequate. How do you treat her?
right,
And
right.
then think about when that happens to you. you failed, you felt inadequate, you've had something difficult happen to you. How do you treat yourself? And I would say almost 100% of women are like, I treat my best friend much better than I ever treat myself. So you start to think about when you're going through things like menopause, when you're having a difficult day, when you snapped at a loved one, you think about, okay, if I had a dear friend who was going through this, how would I treat her? So
Mm-hmm.
you're kind rather than critical.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of
Mm-hmm.
saying, this shouldn't be happening, or I don't like this, or, I've messed up, and beating yourself up, which I think is another thing as women, we really feel like we need our self-critic to be successful in life, which absolutely isn't true. Self-criticism actually undermines
Mm.
our motivation. We're kind to ourselves, and that's a big step. It takes time. Self-compassion is a practice. So the first part is being kind to yourself rather than critical. Understanding common humanity. You are not the only woman going through menopause. There are millions of women who are experiencing a similar thing. It makes you feel like you're not so isolated and alone. So after common humanity, is finally mindfulness. So being mindful, and this is so important to notice when you are stressed and struggling. So often when we're stressed and struggling, maybe we're having a hot flash, or we're, getting some brain fog. We can't. I've had this happen when I was going through menopause. I couldn't remember the name of my next door neighbor. It was like at a party introducing, and I was like, oh my God, I can't remember her name. And but understanding that, okay, being mindful, and instead of beating yourself up, just like, okay, this is a moment of suffering. Suffering is part of life. How can I be there for myself in this moment? And it's something that just says, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, I've forgotten your name. I'm so sorry. I'm going through menopause,
Love
but
that.
the mindfulness piece, what I have my clients do, and listeners can do this as well, is take out a sheet of paper, make 5 columns: body, mind, heart, spirit, and relationships, and list all the ways that you already take care of yourself in those categories and how you would like to take care of yourself. And when you notice that you are stressed and struggling, you take out the list. Oh, I could journal. Oh, I could call
Oh,
my
that's
friend.
great.
I could take a nap. I could listen to
Mm-hmm.
music. I could dance. I could, take a shower or a hot bath. I could go do some grounding, walk in nature. I could watch some silly cat videos. But you take out the list and you give yourself permission to do that thing. And you think about, like, I have one client right now, and, and she has her friend Beth, her best friend. And I'm like, okay, so what would you say to Beth if Beth was going through this?
Mm.
And she does that. And that's made a world
Mm-hmm.
of difference to her.
That's a great practical takeaway. That really, it's just idiot proof. If you're struggling, just go to the lists. In your coaching practice, in your community, when you're speaking to women, what are the common themes that women tell you that they're struggling with the most through menopause from like a emotional, psychological standpoint?
Yeah, I would say, emotional regulation is so hard.
Hmm.
We're so taught that what we think of as positive emotions, happiness and joy and gratitude are okay. But the emotions like anger, frustration, sadness, grief, there's a lot of grief at this time of
Yeah.
life too. We should mention that, sometimes,
Hmm.
whether it's you've lost your dog, you've lost a parent, you're just even mourning your youth, having regrets. Um, it's really hard for women to know how to deal with difficult emotions. So I should say the first thing is to know that all emotions are okay. In even things like
Mm.
anxiety, depression, when we're feeling a certain way, it's this opportunity to practice self-compassion, to be there for ourselves, to not, and also one of the big struggles that I see with my clients and women going through these transitions is a lot of emotional eating and a lot of use of
Oh.
alcohol. Now, nothing wrong with, we all eat emotionally from time to time, but women are so stressed out, and self-care just looks like the threesome with Ben and Jerry's and Netflix. And, and there's nothing
That's
wrong with,
not the threesome we aspire to.
yeah, and the problem with that is you haven't addressed what you're going through. So you're feeling stressed. You've had a hard day at work. You just want to feel better. And the quickest way to feel better is to, pour that glass of Chardonnay, hit the Netflix.
Hmm.
Personally, I'm a big Bridgerton fan. I just
Same.
like,
So good.
just, which is nothing wrong with that. But like, if that's your only mode of self-care, the problem is that you're not addressing what's triggering those difficult emotions, and you're not
Hmm.
doing behaviors and creating habits that are actually going to make you feel better. And the problem is once you've had that threesome, then not only are you still stuck with the same issue, but on top of it, you're feeling like, gosh, I wish I hadn't done that. I don't feel so good after that. And, we haven't touched too much on the nutritional piece, but if you haven't been taking care of your body really is going to start to listen to you. Like this is sort of the 50,000 mile checkup here. And there's a huge connection between nutrition, what you eat, and how you feel in your brain. There's a bi-directional relationship between diet and, and psychological health. And so the foods that you eat impact we're learning a lot about what's called the microbiome, which is the sort of the microorganisms and environment in your gut. 80% of your serotonin is made in your gut. That's that feel good chemical. There's a lot of information going from your gut to your brain. And so if you're not if you're living off of junk food, the research really shows that that's going to have a huge negative impact on your mental health. So I think that's another issue with women is, they're not doing the self-care around eating the right foods, which is really, really simple. It's simply, eat more plants, eat more protein, and eat less processed food. Don't eat anything your grandmother wouldn't have eaten. And I know when I work with clients, when they start to change their diet, when they start to move their bodies, they manage their stress and they work on their sleep, they start to feel a lot better and they're much more able to cope with the menopausal transition. And when they do this also from this place of self-compassion and self-love, not beating themselves up, that's another thing that needs to change. This whole emphasis on weight. Can we just look at weight as an outcome we want, but not the goal? Because what happens is when you're doing all the great stuff, you're moving your body every day, you're feeling good, you're eating more of a whole food plant-based diet, you're working on the sleep, but the scale doesn't shift. You start to beat yourself up and get angry and say, why am I even bothering? And you just go back to your old habits. Super important to take care of your health now, because as the estrogen goes down, the risk of osteoporosis, heart disease, and cognitive, problems like Alzheimer's, those things go up because estrogen impacts that. So we need to take even better care of our bodies and our brains so that we, can be that healthy at 100.
That's the goal, right? And there has been an element, because I see it so live in our community and with my menopausal girlfriends. What you just said was, I might as well just give up. And I'm never going to get back the body. By the way, who cares and who wants the body at 21? So I'm just going to eat the ice cream and I'm going to eat the chips. But then you hate yourself. It's even like there's the physical things. Oh, I feel gross, but it's like, what is wrong with me that I can't control myself at this age? It's just, you feel so defeated.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, Laura, that when we bring this element of self-compassion, that was a game changer for me. I used to be in
Yeah.
my 40s, I was that personal fitness trainer who was like totally cut up, but had horrible negative body image, eating disorders, and everything was this place of self-loathing. Like when I
Yeah.
get the perfect body, whatever that means, then I will love myself. I learned self-compassion. And now I work with my clients, instead of starting with this, let's beat ourselves up, do these soul crushing workouts and these really draconian diets. Let's start with this place of self-love, doing these things because I love ourselves. We want to feel good. We want to be healthy at 100. It's a total game changer. And also when we practice, again, the self-compassion piece, it shifts our body image.
That's right.
The body shame goes down, the body appreciation goes up, and it has nothing to do with the actual what your body looks like, because body image is only up here. It's all in your
Yeah.
mind. It has nothing to do with your actual body. Supermodels and dancers, these people that we admire and think look amazing, have some of the most negative body image on the planet. So you can feel good about your body. And I guess a part of it too is, gosh, the most important thing about you isn't your looks. That's another thing women are told. The most important thing about us is our looks. And it's really, again, a pack of lies that we have been handed and taught to keep us disempowered.
Yeah.
But
You
look
nailed it.
cute. Let's all talk about looking cute. Like I love a good pair of shoes. I love, thrift shopping and wearing cute clothes, and it makes me feel good. But it's all about focusing on feeling good and doing what makes you, what brings you joy, what lights you up. But again, it's not going back and trying to look like your 26-year-old self. I mean, I know people in their 20s and early 30s who are doing cosmetic procedures.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
bananas.
It's all bananas. So you've talked about it through our conversation, and it's whipped by so fast. But in ordering your book, I saw that you do recap the 7 steps to rocking midlife. So can you, as we wrap up here, can you just list them out in summary? What are the 7 steps for us
Sure.
to rock and roll?
So the first is know yourself.
Okay.
If you want to rock midlife, you've got to know yourself. And I think what my situation was, and I think a lot of women I work with, it's like you're climbing up this ladder of success. You're doing all the things to please other people, to do those societal norms, the things that you were taught, like if I have this job, this career, then I'm going to be happy. You get to the top of the building and you look around, you think, oh my God, I'm so unhappy. It's because your ladder is up against the wrong building. And so what's important is to really get to know yourself, to know like, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What do I love to do? What's my genius zone? Doing more of those things that are your God-given talents, really getting to know yourself and just to feel good that you can be the youest you. So knowing yourself is so important. When you know yourself, you're really on your path. Like where I'm at now, like if you had told me, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago when I was still, in my first marriage, that I would be living on this beautiful island with this man who literally has created this farm for us. He just put in 32 blueberry plants and 10 fruit trees. He's insane. He's like got a gardening
Love it.
addiction. And in Costa Rica, like I live in these places, but that when I found who I truly am, then I'm like on this magical path where every day is really just delightful. So knowing
Mm,
yourself. The second piece we've talked a lot about is loving yourself. And
mhm,
that's so important because when you love yourself, you stop doing the things that insult your soul. You start to attract the things which are truly in your highest interest. You start saying no to what you want to say no to and yes to what you want to say yes to. And you start to also attract, great friends and people. When I started practicing self-compassion, which I feel is like the how of self-love. Self-love can sometimes feel like, how do I do self-love? But self-compassion is an actual practice. It's a daily practice of things that you're doing to treat yourself like a good friend, as well as formal meditations that you can do in order to really work on being more of your own best friend. So that's the second piece, is loving yourself. The third piece is energizing yourself. And so this
mm,
is really where I bring in the nutrition, the stress, the sleep, and the movement. And creating consistent habits, again from this place of self-love. So everything is sort of under this umbrella that I'm doing this because I love and care about myself. And then also it gets into the fourth piece, which is transforming your brain, your mindset. And so really working on what are my core beliefs, and questioning what are the limiting beliefs that I have, and what are new ways that I want to be thinking. And so changing your brain patterning, and also I think changing your perspective on aging. I think it's wonderful. There's so many cool people on Instagram who are like, this is the best time of life. And I think that's all of us are so enthusiastic that we're having a blast. Sure, there are struggles. And I think I mentioned, like, I had breast cancer 2 years ago and struggled through it. I've been through divorce, empty nest. I've been through blindness. My retina detached 3 times and I went blind. So I've been through a lot, but I've never been happier. And I just am so grateful for every day. So transforming your mindset and seeing, I'm going through these things, but this is opportunities to really get to know myself,
mm.
love myself, energize myself, take care of my body, my mind, have this holistic self-care, change my mindset. And then we get to empowerment. And empowerment is where you bring those first 4 steps together and you start to act. You think about, what is it I really want to do? Like maybe this career, I want to shift. A lot of people I've worked with have shifted from like a corporate job and saying, I want to do consulting, or I want to become a wellness coach, or I want to write that book, or maybe I want to like travel, or maybe I want to get out of a relationship that's not working, or maybe I'm not in a relationship and I want to get in a relationship. So this empowerment where I'm going to start to act. And the thing is that you don't need to change everything overnight. You change your
Mhm.
mindset and you make small, deliberate steps, and this builds self-efficacy. You feel more confident. You get clearer. You're sort of saying to the universe, okay, my foot's on the gas, it's off the brake, steer me in the right direction, and things start to really unfold. You focus more on your creativity. Like, what are you doing to create a life you love? You're really empowered in realizing that I am the author of my life, and my life can be amazing. And then you get to rehabbing your relationships, because what happens is you become that a butterfly or dragonfly, right? And the people in your life, many of them will still see you as the caterpillar,
Mm,
because they're going to drag you back into their reality, because we see things as we are, not as they truly are. All of us are living in a different reality that we're kind of overlapping. And so you have to rehab those relationships. And the what I teach people are threefold. Create a bill of rights. So I have a
oof.
template in my book where you create a personal bill of rights about, I deserve to feel good. I deserve to take care of myself. I deserve to rest when I want to. I deserve to express my emotions. I deserve to be my true self, whatever that is for you. Having a bill of rights, learning to say no, which we talked about earlier, is really, really powerful. And then something called nonviolent communication, which is a technique where you get your needs met, where
Mm,
you tell people, I'm observing this is how it makes me feel, and you request them to behave a certain way. You get your basic core needs met. And then the final piece is enlighten yourself. And that kind of goes back to that ikigai, this idea of your passion, your purpose. What are you here to do? I watched that wonderful Netflix documentary called On the Blue Zones, and I live in Costa
oh,
Rica.
it's
And one of
so
the
good.
yeah, but it
Yeah.
is, but they all have a
Yeah.
sense of passion and purpose, right? They're
Hmm.
these wonderful older people, and I look at them and I'm so inspired by that 100-year-old man on a horse who's like, that's his purpose. Every day he gets up, takes care of his cows. That 102-year-old woman who's chopping wood, those amazing Japanese women who are like dancing and laughing and taking care of each other and in community. So,
Hmm.
having this sense of passion and purpose, and just getting rid of like these ideas. I mean, gosh, I think that getting older, it looks so different. Like when I was younger, getting older, like I'm 61, that seemed old, right? Like you said, you're
Yeah.
in your 40s, it seemed old, but it's not. I feel
No.
incredible. Like you don't have to feel tired and achy, and you can get the help you need. And we didn't touch on that much on hormone replacement therapy. I'm not a doctor to address it, but that's an option. It really is. If
Hmm.
you're feeling crappy, there's so much that you can do. And if your doctor is saying just let nature take its course, find another doctor.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to be our own champion, get what we need, make ourselves happy, and buy your book. That's going to give
Yeah.
us the tools to get out of a rut. I think you're really synthesizing a formula, a recipe that's so inspiring and motivating. And I think you should have a retreat in Costa Rica, and we'll invite our entire community, and you'll change women's lives because that's what you're doing. It's
All
amazing
right.
work.
Well, pura vida. So if we can, I'm 100% in. I actually bought the house with that in mind, and I live 5 minutes from a Blue Flag beach, which is absolutely gorgeous. 20 minutes from the airport. So yes, I would love people to come down, and we can practice self-compassion. And I think that's a really important piece too. Is gosh, getting support, talking to your sisters, realizing that you're not alone in all of this,
Mm,
and that you'll get through this, but that, it starts early. A lot of women are experiencing menopausal symptoms a decade before that time when they haven't had a
hmm.
period in a year. I
Yeah.
know I was in my 40s when I was experiencing, major depression and just feeling really sad, but I had, what's called perfectly hidden depression, where I walked around with a smile on my face, was absolutely miserable. And so I'm so
Oh.
glad that you have this podcast and this community, and that we're talking about it.
We will link all of your things, your book, your website. In the background, we'll start planning our retreat. I'm quite excited. And keep doing what you're doing because it is very inspiring work, Dr. Ellen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.